Hi again, everyone. We welcome you to the WKYC High School Football Game of the Week preview show as we have entered the regional final round of this postseason in the state of Ohio. And boy, do we have a great matchup for you. I'm Dave DiNatale. Tyler Carey is here as well. TC, we all year long, I feel like we have set the stage for the matchup that we are about to witness Friday night at Byers Field in Parma in Division I, Region 1. They've been the two best teams, I think, in your poll pretty much all year long. They've been the two best teams in Northeast Ohio, save for our friends over at Kirtland and Chardon all year long. And you couldn't have asked for a better matchup than what we're going to have Friday.
Absolutely not, Dino. Like you said, I feel like we've been debating this one since mid-September when it kind of appeared to us just how good these two schools were. But no surprise to anybody, it will be St. Edward and Medina at Byers Field this Friday night for our WKYC.com high school football game of the week. Two very different, historically different programs here. Medina 13-0. For the first time ever. They've got the great quarterback in Drew Allar going to Penn State, probably going to win Mr. Football this year, but Medina not really used to being in this position among the big boys in the OHSAA. Meanwhile, St. Edward has been there, it feels like, for the past 10, 15 years. Right. 4 state championships. They're trying to win a 5th. Only one loss this year to a very good Moeller team. And now the two heavyweights, as you said, are going to be meeting finally on the football field. And there is a little bit of history going back to last year, and I think that's going to be a major backdrop when they meet in Parma on Friday.
Yeah, let's start with that point. Let's turn the clock back to 2020 when everybody could get into the playoffs. There weren't that many surprises around Northeast Ohio, but there were two in particular. One, that North Royalton team that came out of nowhere, hadn't won a game all year, and pulled off a couple of upsets against Amherst and Olmsted Falls. The other was Medina. And not only did the Battling Bees knock out St. Ignatius, they also knocked out St. Edward and, got all the way to this run before getting knocked out by Menor. You got to think that in this 12-month period, that Coach Lombardo and the Eagles have thought about this and thought about a rematch. And boy, what if we could get another shot at Allar and Medina en route to a playoff run, a state championship run?
No doubt. I feel like this has been their mantra all year. We got to beat those guys. We got to beat those guys. And not that they would want to sound arrogant here, but that you probably think, and I still remember that night, ironically, it was when you were calling the North Royalton Olmsted Falls game, telling you after the game that 8 or 9 seed Medina had upset number 1 St. Edward, and the look on your face of just pure and utter shock and astonishment still sticks with me. And I think it stuck with all of us. And you got to think St. Edward, it had to at least cross their minds. How did this plucky little Medina team knock us out of the playoffs? Of course, we now know how good Drew Allar is. That was kind of the beginning of his ascent to the top of the recruiting rankings. But this St. Edward team has kind of played like a team on a mission all year. Only that one loss to Archbishop Moeller. Christian Ramos has guided that offense at quarterback. Danny Enovitch, one of the best running backs in Northeast Ohio. It seems like every week I look at his stat sheet and it's 100, 150, 200 yards, 2-3 touchdowns. The defense can be a little bit shaky, but it certainly has had its moments. Zyion Freer-Brown leads a very deep front 7. And I think this St. Edward team, one of the big advantages they're going to have over Medina is that they are battle tested. The Bees, they played good teams all year. Stow and Menor, that gauntlet through the Greater Cleveland Conference. St. Edward, they've had to play Elder, Maslin, Ignatius, Moeller, Hoban. They beat up on Canton McKinley this week. This is the best team I feel that Medina has faced all year by far. Yeah. But St. Edward, they know it's going to be a tough game, but they're used to being in this position, and I think that is going to pay dividends for them on Friday night.
On the flip side, Medina, when they made their march last year, they did it in a lot of ways because I mean, Drew Allar really, as you said, really came into his own as an elite quarterback at the high school level. This year, having watched them, I think it was in week 3 or week 4 that we were down there and watched Medina play Stowe. What's different this year is that defensively, they're really good. I mean, it was one thing to outscore Stowe. It was another thing to shut the Bulldogs down in the second half, which is what they did. And similarly, Medina did that against Avon a couple of weeks earlier. And so everybody going into this game, TC, thinking that, Medina's a one-trick pony and it just offense, they're going to be in for a surprise. And I know I'm not saying Coach Lombardo and the Eagles feel that way. I know they don't. But if you're just a casual fan and you say you're just thinking about Drew Allar, you're not getting the whole picture about the Battling Bees.
Absolutely not. And we joked earlier in the year that, Drew Allar is in a Boobie Miles situation like in Friday Night Lights. Look, clearly the offense runs through him. They are a state title contender because of him.
Yes.
But this team, like you said, it's not just him on this team. Offensively, he's got some very nice weapons. Jajuan Jackson, Brennan, Schramm, just to name a couple. And you talked about the defense, which I think is a little bit better than St. Edward overall. Matt Spatny, I remember, had a great game against the Bulldogs back in week 4.
He's tremendous.
And that was a healthy Stowe team that we thought was going to be a state title contender. Owen Bainbridge, who's a great quarterback in his own right, was healthy in that game and was pretty much shut down in that second half. He ended up getting hurt later in the year, and that's why Stowe kind of fell from the ranks of the elite as the season went on. They showed us that night, they showed all of Ohio that night, that they are a team to be reckoned with and a true title contender that last year wasn't a fluke. And I think you're right. Tom Lombardo's a great head coach. He knows that going in. He knows that this is so much more than the Mr. Football contender under center. But it's going to be strength on strength. I think both of these teams have great offenses. I think St. Edward has a pretty good defense, but as I said, I think the Bees are they have a little bit more of an advantage in that category. And something's got to give. I think they're very evenly matched overall, and it's going to make for a very close and very epic game when they finally meet at Byers.
So that's kind of a tale of the tape on the Eagles and the Battling Bees. Before we get to kind of the other regional games that are going to be going on, the regional finals around Northeast Ohio, real quick, we gave people a chance on Monday to vote for our performer of the week in high school football, and your chance to win a free meal from Chick-fil-A. Who got the coveted title this week?
Well, Dino, this week, and I got to give credit to our fans. They've been getting into this, and of course, one lucky voter is going to win a free meal from our sponsor, Chick-fil-A. I know that will certainly make them happy. But the winner this week is Javon Williams, the quarterback from Holy Name. How about his game last Friday? 344 total yards, 3 total touchdowns, including the game winner as the Green Wave beat Padua Franciscan. How about Holy Name? Came into the playoffs as an 8 seed, only 4-5. They're 3-0 so far in the postseason, including a 28-0 win over the top seed Norton. And they are in the Region 10 final in Division 3. So a nice little run for Holy Name out of the Parma Heights area. And that kind of brings me, as we transition to the playoff remaining teams. 15 teams left, Dino, after we had over 120 to start this slate. Now, for those of us who weren't necessarily thrilled with the expanded brackets and kind of shook our heads as we saw teams like Worcester and Milan Edison go on a little bit of runs. Worcester actually barely lost to Green last week, so a good run for them. The lowest seeded team remaining in the entire state, not just Northeast Ohio, the entire state, is Holy Name, an 8 seed who would have made the playoffs anyway. Now, again, that's still a pretty significant upset, an 8 seed making it that far, but we've seen it before. And I remember a few years ago, St. Edward was a 7 seed, and we watched them win the state championship. So, yes, we kind of had that ammunition of, we saw these double-digit seeds winning games, but didn't really go on those Cinderella runs like some were probably hoping, Dino.
Yeah, it's going to make for a very interesting discussion in Columbus, but all over the state, as to the merits of this, because there's certainly arguments to be made both sides. I stand kind of by how I felt that I didn't feel like it was needed. Understanding why and the reasons why they did that. I think I would prefer it be the way it was before, but for those like Worcester, like Edison, and some of those other high seed, low seeds, I guess, the 16 to 10 seeds that were able to pick up some early wins. I mean, that's great. It really is. But we're getting off track, and I don't want to get too far. But for those who lost like 60 to nothing or 70-7 in that first week, yeah, not so thrilled with how that played itself out.
And again, not all of these double-digit seeds are created equal. I mean, Worcester was 5-5, which Holy Name was 4-5, and they were an 8 seed. It's not like Lorraine who made it and they were 1-9. So there are some intricacies to this, but like you said, it's going to be an interesting discussion over the next year. There've certainly been heated opinions on both sides, so we'll just have to see how it goes. Oh, sorry about that. All right, Region 1, Division 1, we already talked about that. That's going to be our game, so we'll move on to Division 2. 3 different regions with local teams, 5 teams in those regions. Region 5, Walsh Jesuit, who we saw beat Benedictine relatively comfortably last week. They're going to be playing Archbishop Hoban. That's going to be a revenge game for the Warriors. Avon will play Toledo Central Catholic, who came from behind a heartbreaking loss for top-seeded Highland. What a great year the Hornets had, but in the end, it ends with a defeat to a very, very good program, as we know. And in Region 7, the 7-seed Green has made a little bit of a run, but now they get to play Massillon. That game was moved from Canal Fulton to Mansfield due to attendance concerns. Arlen Field a little bit bigger out in Richland County, but I would say, Dino, over all of these 3 regions, I think any of these teams has a chance to win the state title.
I would agree. And, I look at Hoban, Avon, Massillon, the 3 higher seeds in those games, all battle tested. You talked about that with St. Edward, and I think that has some merit. I just know, having seen Walsh Jesuit last week, that team's on a mission, and they really, not only from an emotional standpoint, but they out-physicaled Benedictine last week, and they're going to have to do that. And I mentioned after the game, I think I threw it on Twitter, they're going to have to play almost a mistake-free game, I think, to beat Hoban. They certainly, performance-wise, they can do it. I mean, I don't have any question about the Warriors, but they've got to avoid the fumbles and the interceptions. They had a bit of an issue with that against the Bengals. They were able to kind of steer around it. Can't do that against Hoban, or they won't win.
We've talked about them building up that talent level to compete with the Hobans and the Benedictines. They've done that. We talked about getting the monkey off their back. They finally snapped that 8-game losing streak against the Bengals last Friday and avenged that 35-34 double overtime loss from week 1. Well, they also lost in OT to Hoban, 35-34. Can they do it again? I think they can, but I think that's going to be a very good game on Friday night. Moving on to Region 3, we talked about Holy Name moving on to the regional final. They'll play unbeaten West Holmes. That game was switched with the Massillon game. They will play in Canal Fulton Friday night. And up in Region 9, I think for a while we were expecting that it would be unbeaten Aurora against unbeaten Chardon, but it is the Dover Tornadoes who end up running the gauntlet at 12-0. They beat up on Kenston last week, and they will play the defending champion Chardon Hilltoppers in Ravenna. Dino, I still believe that Chardon is the favorite to win, to get back to the state championship game, and certainly to win this region, but they're going to get all they can handle from Dover, who's had an excellent year so far.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I mean, we know with Dover, they're a terrific offensive football team. It reminds you of almost like Medina with how they are able to execute their passing game and put points on the board. But I don't think they've played defense as good as Chardon, and they're going to have to figure out a way to get through and put up some points against Mitch Hewitt's defense. Easier said than done. To what bad. So I'll be interested early on to see if, Dover has any early offensive success against Chardon. Because if they've got to come back against that defense, that's a problem.
You mentioned battle tested. Chardon, been there, done that. Obviously last year, winning the whole thing. Kind of uncharted territory for Dover. They've been in big games before, but I think you and I both know Chardon is a much, much different test than some of the very good teams they played this year. Now, there are no teams left in Division 4, sadly. Glenville, Perry, Perkins all lost last week. So we are out as far as that bracket goes. We move on to Division 5. I'll start with Region 18 real quick. Elyria Catholic has had a pretty nice run, the number 2 seed, making it all the way to the final. They'll play Ottawa Glandorf in Clyde. But all eyes are on the Kirtland Hornets 53-game winning streak. We talked about how there were 4 unbeaten teams left in Region 17 last weekend. Kirtland beat Garrettsville Garfield, South Range squeaking by Garraway, and it will be those 2 teams playing each other in Niles. A bit of an interesting choice on Friday night. Again, I still think Kirtland is the favorite, but Tiger Laverty knows that he can't take South Range for granted.
Yeah, and Kirtland, at least from a score standpoint, it took a little bit to get their offense moving against Garfield. I kept looking over, it was like 3-0 or 6-0. And, defensively, Hornets played a great game. They were terrific against Garfield, but it felt like it just took a little bit of, time for the offense to get kind of cranked up. And once it did, they were able to win that game, as we see 25-7. So
I forgot I was sharing.
I
forgot I was sharing my screen for a second. It was, 25-7. You look at that. Oh, that's a blowout, and it is in a playoff game against an unbeaten team. But for Kirtland, they're used to winning those games like 45-7, even against great opponents. So maybe a little bit of chink in the armor, but that could also be a wake-up call for them, an excuse for Tiger Laverty to have him get back in the film room and back in the practice field and kind of iron out some of the edges.
Yeah, they need to finish drives. I think that's going to be one thing to watch. Make those field goals into touchdowns.
Absolutely. That'll be an epic game on Saturday night. And then real quick, we'll move on to Divisions 6 and 7. Unbeaten Weller Crestview got knocked out last weekend, but Mogador, despite being a 4 seed, we know how good they can be in the postseason. They move on. They'll play Springfield in Salem. And then Dalton beat Lucas last week. They'll play Warren John F. Kennedy in Alliance. 2 very good programs there, Dino. In Mogador, Warren JFK, kind of just outside our area, but they've been known to win championships over the years. I believe that is Mike Polk Jr.'s alma mater, if I'm not mistaken. But as you can see, only 15 teams left, but contenders all around across the divisions. And it's going to be very, very exciting as we reach the home stretch here. And you and I both know it. We're going to be represented in Canton, this region.
I think there's a good chance for at least 4 of the 7 divisions, and as you point out, Division 4 is already out. But I think at least 4 from Northeast Ohio will be playing in Canton for a state championship. I feel that way.
I can still remember a few years ago when we had 6 teams across 5 different divisions make it to state title games. 5 Northeast Ohio teams winning titles.
Yeah, 3 in one day.
Yeah, and we broadcasted all of them. I will never forget the work that had to be done on that day, but it was certainly a notch on our belts. But great teams to watch this year. We've been following them all year, and I think that we saw last year, despite the COVID shortened season, it was kind of chalk going into the championship games. For the most part, it's been that way this year. Who is still standing? St. Edward, Medina, Chardon, Hoban,
Avon, Hoban,
again.
Yeah. Kirtland.
It's the usual suspect. Kirtland, as you mentioned, the usual suspects. And some people may say, "Oh, that's not that we want other teams to." And yes, it is fun to have parity, but these teams are there for a reason. They know how to win, and they have a formula for success, and it just keeps working.
Yeah. So we'll, in addition to our game Friday, we'll let you know how those Division 2 and 3 regional semifinals are playing themselves out. It'll be Divisions 1 through 4 playing on Friday, and then obviously 5, 6, 7 will play on Saturday. But for our purposes, again, a reminder, we will be at Byers Field Friday night, Division 1 Region 1 final. It will be top seed St. Edward, number 2 seed Medina, and we'll have that one for you. We'll start at about 6:50 from Byers Field. One of those games where very little else needs to be said. You just say St. Edward and Medina, and let's play, TC.
Will this top, Dino, the St. Edward Menor game you got to call a couple of years ago that turned out to be an instant classic?
It certainly has the possibility. We hope so. It's, we're looking forward to a great one. Again, I'll talk to everybody from Byers Field Friday night at 6:50 on WKYC.com, also on our WKYC app, that 3 News app, on our YouTube page, and on Facebook Live. So many ways to get the game, and we'll have the audio stream for you so you will not miss it, we guarantee. All right, that'll do it for us. For Tyler Carey, I'm Dave DiNatale. Thanks for watching our preview show, our high school football game of the week preview show right here on WKYC.com.